What is the most freedom you ever experienced? For exactly 1 year, 1993 to 1994, when my abusive stepfather temporarily ran off and lived with his brother. All I remember is the fun I had with Super Mario Bros. 3, Nickelodeon, Lego bricks, and not getting yelled at. The first time I bought a car. Just the thought of knowing I could be a couple hundred miles away in a few hours if I wanted to was incredibly thrilling. First apartment by myself. I had a job. I had a car. I was debt free. I could do whatever I wanted. Jacking off on my couch after moving into my own apartment while watching porn on the big screen. Parents left one night. I went to sleep at 8:30. In college, my new friends there gave me more moral support in 1 week than my parents had given me in my whole life. A convocation of eagles lifted me from my driveway while wearing nothing but an American flag and dropped me off at the White House last year on the 4th of July. I camped out on an island in the middle of the lake in northern Ontario all by myself. I was able to go skinny dipping, dry off by the fire and sleep under the stars, which was breathtaking since there was zero light pollution. I wasn't bothered by anyone or have a way for anyone to bother me. I was able to disconnect from my phone, email, work and social media. The peace I felt was amazing. I was going through a hard time in my life and that brief time alone allowed me to reflect on my life for a short while. I was able to forget about my problems and struggles I had been battling with for a short amount of time and just feel peace. When I stopped trying to be a Christian and I realized I could do things that made me happy without the constant fear of going to hell. Being left alone in the house for a whole day. I have helicopter-ass parents. First year after leaving my ex-husband. No more abuse of any kind. I slept the coma-like sleep of someone who hasn't rested in years. I ate the foods I liked. I watched the shows I liked. I read my books in peace. No more mandatory scheduled sex every other day whether I liked it or not. I got to be still. I got to rediscover the me I gave up so long ago. No more living in a constant low-level terror that could escalate at any moment for no good reason. It was like being set free from prison. If given a choice then, or even now, of returning to him or spending years in jail, I'll take jail. Gladly. I didn't realize how bad it was until I left. That first year of freedom felt like the best vacation I've ever taken. I found so much enjoyment in the smallest of things. And I slowly started building a life again. When I was 13 and a friend's mom took us to an amusement park. Gave us a phone number and a little money and said okay. Go play. It was the first time we had ever been allowed to wander around such a large area on our own. With complete power over what we were going to do next. We just straight up sprinted into the park. Like dogs let off a leash at the dog park. Meow. That period of time between the ages of 0 and 23 where responsibility did not extend past attending class and doing homework. Then the shackles of student loan debt and life were placed upon me and life hasn't felt the same since. After my breast reduction surgery, I'm 23M. I immediately felt the greatest wave of relief of my life so far. It's hard to know how much pain you're in when you're in the thick of it. Public nudity felt pretty damn liberating. Quitting my job, which was causing me so much stress and anxiety, and going traveling in Australia. I felt so liberated. Going from feeling like I was trapped doing something I hated, to being in this whole new country and having the freedom to approach each day differently, however I wanted. Living 10 years in an RV. Off-grid, no expenses except food. Worked 15 hours a month to park in a forest on a private ranch in the mountains. My friend had a bumper sticker that said poor, broke, and happy. Didn't understand it until a brief time in my life when I was unemployed and homeless. Made me appreciate life a little more. Leaving the LDS church. My first Bonnaroo. I have never been surrounded by more truly happy, kind and open people. I found a part of myself that I didn't know existed. Every year gets better and better. Turning 18 and jumping out of an airplane because I always wanted to. One day, my cell phone broke. I have two to throw in here. Weight FCK at 3. The first is the very top of a simple layout in gymnastics. When your upward momentum and gravity cancel out, there is a moment where time seems to slow. And after the trick becomes possible reflexively, you have a moment where you're looking around taking in the environment at an accelerated rate. The second would be that moment where you're pretty damn certain you're about to die. There's nothing you can do about it but enjoy and love the people around you. And the final moment of freedom is when you get to walk around the woods with a group of trusted individuals nude. Where sex doesn't matter. Just the freedom of not wearing clothes. Having some shroom tea and molly. And laying on a floor of softness while staring at pretty lights. People. And things. Going to uni. I'm accountable to only myself and it's great. Though it does make coming home for the holidays a little strange. Having a shitty with the bathroom door open. The 3 months I backpacked my way all over Australia. I almost never came back several times. I was made redundant from work. And took 6 months off before starting the new job I'd already lined up before I finished work. I spent 6 months living off part of my redundancy payout. And it was like a surprise holiday. And it was the first time I'd had a summer off work since I was 14. I spent most of my time at home playing video games. It was great. Hanging out on an beach in Jamaica at an all-inclusive resort. Can't recommend this enough. The last day of school. Knowing from that day on I never had to go again if I didn't want to. I remember walking down the road on my way home with my friend. Both eating chocolate bars that our head of year had given out. The sun was shining. Everything was great. Having the house to myself for more than a day. Especially if it coincides with my days off. Last year I house sat for some friends of mine as they went on vacation for over a week. It was one of the best weeks of my life. Walking around naked on acid in my family's 4-story house while they were gone for the weekend and I was totally stocked on food, smokes, and liquor. My first music festival. Hippies walking around naked and fucking. Smoking weed in public was not only allowed but encouraged. And a cornucopia of psychedelics was a buffet to be feasted upon. I went to a church summer camp as a kid once. Wasn't religious. Just wanted to go to a camp and the parents were more than happy to pay for it. I snuck out at night and went off into the woods and when I was sure no one was around I stripped naked and walked around nude for like 10 minutes. I put my clothes back on and went back to the whatever. Big tent thing. Teepee I guess and went back to sleep. Tons of kids from school were there. I'm really glad I didn't get caught. Rolled a backwards with 3 grams of weed and was smoking it throughout the whole park lake. There's a police station built right next to the lake and cops can see everything that happens at the lake from their building, but this is a upper middle class suburbs, they didn't even bat an eye. I'm from Baltimore and I was shocked. After I got my first car. I no longer have it sadly, but it was a 2002 Subaru WRX wagon. F-king love that car and I hate myself for being financially irresponsible because I could still have it. Anyways, anytime I would just go for a drive I always felt so free. Turbo probably helped. Summer break. Going to a store and buying weed. Bought my first motorcycle 2 weeks ago. Pure unadulterated freedom. Kills. Buying food for myself with the money I earned. And then eating that food exactly when I wanted. It tastes good. And the release of dopamine while eating feels even better. I once stepped foot in America. One day, I learned that I lived in America. I was born directly from an eagle's egg. Clutching an AR-15 in one hand and a bundle of fireworks in the other. I stepped into my monster truck and jumped over a dozen yellow school buses and chowed down the biggest damn Wendy's burger you've ever seen and tea some red, white and poo. That was the most freedom I've ever had. Every time I go to Cuba, as a tourist though, not so much as a Cuban. Having my first apartment and walking around naked at all times. Stayed alone the entire weekend this April. Over the course of 3 days, I got my girlfriend home. She left the next day. Immediately few minutes after she leaves, I call my friends in, pull hookah, play games all day, eat junk all day. They stayed back the entire night too. They leave next morning, and I spend the entire morning cleaning up everything. Ate waffles for breakfast. Went for a ride in my brother's bike. Went to play. Came back at 10:00 p.m. And by that time as everyone was already home. Greatest weekend ever. The 13th of April 15th was the greatest weekend ever. I got hired for a full-time permanent job in my field just before I graduated university. But the job didn't start until a month after I graduated. I'd just gotten a tax refund that was more than enough to live on for that month. So I had a whole month where, for the first time in my life, I could do whatever I wanted and had no obligations. I didn't have homework. I wasn't in a situation where I should be looking for a job or looking for a better job. I lived alone so I didn't have to take anyone else's needs into account. I wasn't beholden to my parents. It was glorious. Staying in my dorm for the weekend while my roommate was gone. I got drunk and walked to the cafeteria to get chicken strips.